and it's an atmosphere like no other on the calendar.
Jack, championship permutations, please, because Max Verstappen could, again, win this weekend.
The long and short of it is, if he wins with fastest lap, he's the champion. If he wins and Leclerc isn't second, then he's the champion. There's other things of if he finishes second and third and fourth and whatever, but broadly speaking, it feels like those are the two main scenarios, right? Either Verstappen will beat Leclerc or Leclerc will beat Verstappen, and if Leclerc beats Verstappen, we carry on. If Verstappen beats Leclerc, there'll be like 1 point in it, whether he gets it wrapped up or not, so fastest lap will be key.
27 times out of the 31 races we've had, a front row starter has finished winning this race. So all eyes will be on who can set the fastest lap, who will start on the front row when it comes to the race tomorrow. By the way, race gets underway at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. We're expecting some more weather. Wet yesterday, potentially dry to start with, and wet tomorrow. So all eyes on qualifying. 50 seconds to go until the session gets underway. As we said, we've got Andrew Benson, Sam Bird and Jack Nicholls.
And just a bit of news for any of you waking up who weren't with us for free practice earlier on this morning, for which there is no blame apportioned to you. It was announced that Esteban Ocon will be racing for Alpine next season alongside Pierre Gasly, who is moving across from the AlphaTauri team to join Alpine, so it'll be an all-French lineup there, and then Nick de Vries will be joining AlphaTauri. So that was announced this morning as we sort of thought it was coming, and then it did come.
Good save, Jack. Well done. Good save.
Got away with that one, didn't I? Right, cars making their way. No, I think I did. I'm pretty sure I did. Cars making their way towards the end of the pit lane with 18 minutes on the clock. The light goes green. Now, for those of you syncing up, we've got 56, 55, 54 seconds left on the clock. And Latifi is first out, followed by Tsunoda and Gasly. Jenny?
Yeah, just a little update from the team. They were fined €1,000. They fitted a mixed set of tyres onto Alex.
Green light.
Do that. So in front of the FIA they went, and £1,000 into the party Christmas coffers for the FIA.
And that was a set of medium compound tyres, I think, wasn't it, Jenny?
You say so? Yep.
If I say so. No, just we saw Joe Bauer out at the front of the Williams garage during FP1 and looking very disgruntled at the mechanics and speaking with them in depth. So
yeah, it was a medium spec tyre. You
yes,
are absolutely correct.
There we go.
What is going on underneath Leclerc's Ferrari? That's the question I have. There's still quite a lot of work under the floor, sort of right in the middle of the car. Leclerc's car is still up on the stands. He's climbing it into it anyway, so, and they've got plenty of time ish, 16 minutes and 45 seconds to go, but it still looks like a little too late to be just doing a bit of front wing flap.
The brakes are coming up good.
Seemed much panic going on in the garage, so I'm sure that that car will make it out. When you're in a Ferrari or a Red Bull, to be honest, as long as the session is green and there's no interruptions, you only need one lap and you'll be through. It's more the people that are on the fringe where you would start to panic and need to try and extract every single thing from the car.
Tsunoda, Latifi and Gasly still the only three drivers that have headed out onto the circuit. As they come down now into the chicane at the end of the lap. Out across the line comes Nicholas Latifi to start his flying lap, followed by Gasly, followed by Tsunoda, in that order. Loads of AlphaTauri flags in the grandstand, as you might imagine, supporting Yuki Tsunoda, the Japanese racer, getting a round of applause, in fact, as he comes down the start-finish straight and in towards turn one. Tsunoda making his Formula One debut at Suzuka. Haven't phrased that very well. Tsunoda racing in Formula One at Suzuka for the first time, or Yuki Tsunoda racing at Suzuka for the first time in Formula One. Whichever way of those phrases you want to choose. Plenty of permutations this weekend. 15 minutes and 12 seconds on the clock. Tsunoda coming into Degner 1, then into Degner 2, the two right-handers that then take him under the bridge of the crossover and up towards the hairpin. The first sector, the quickest, is Tsunoda by a couple of tenths of a second over his teammate Pierre Gasly. Lando Norris has now left the pits in the McLaren, so finally someone else has decided to leave. A little bit surprised that AlphaTauri have gone out this early. I didn't really expect them to be I don't expect them to be back markers in the way that, you know, the Williams going out early and the Haas going out early tend to be, but we'll see what happens. They've obviously got maybe a few more tyres to play with in general because of the lack of running this weekend. 14 minutes and 25 seconds to go. Jenny?
Yeah, they also didn't have a great free practice 3. Gasly was actually right down at the bottom of the timings, and Tsunoda was only a couple of places above him. Now, I'm sure Tsunoda's going out there to please the fans, but there's definitely work to do for AlphaTauri. They're not particularly comfortable this weekend so far.
Tsunoda does a 31.6, which is 4 tenths of a second quicker than Pierre Gasly, and Latifi returned to the pit lane then. So Latifi did that Williams trick of a little sighting lap and then returning to the pit lane. So that 31.6 for Tsunoda is already 7 tenths quicker than he managed in free practice 3. Obviously the track will be getting a little better as the day goes on, and a bit more rubbered in, although there's not a huge amount of, well, there's no sort of high-powered support series, let's say. It's not like you've got Formula 2 to run around and put some more rubber down as well. It's only really the Formula 1 running that is major this weekend. Lando Norris on an outlap in McLaren, and that fight between McLaren and Alpine and even Aston Martin looked really tight this morning, I thought.
It did. I thought that Alpine yesterday had a massive advantage over McLaren, but it did seem to, in the drive, come to within a couple of tenths of each other. So it will be interesting this afternoon and going into tomorrow to see who's got the edge. I still think Fernando has got the edge potentially over McLaren, especially Fernando, but let's see.
Only Porsche Carrera Cup Japan qualifying in between F1 and this, and or between FP3 and this. So in fact that's the only other support series here this weekend. Normally there's some really great single-seaters which are a lot of fun, sort of local national single-seater racing, kind of like Formula Ford kind of style. Maybe they've got a couple of wings, but they're a lot of fun.
They used to have, I think, Japanese F3, didn't they? But that's, unfortunately, that was such a strong series, and it's died of death. Such a shame. You know, you've got some incredible drivers that have come through that. I think you've got historically, you've got some big names, and then more recently, even people like Marcus Ericsson went over to Japanese F3 to learn their trade.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tsunoda still quickest with Gasly second, 4 tenths of a second between them still, but we're going to get some more lap times incoming very shortly, including from Norris, from Hamilton, and from Russell. Hamilton's only 100th down on Tsunoda after sector 1, but he is on the medium tyres, as is George Russell, so both Mercedes out on the mediums. Jenny?
Yeah, I spoke to Ferrari to ask about Charles Leclerc. They said no issues going to run, and he has now left the garage and is on his out lap.
So just Alonso, Ocon and Albon and Latifi who are in the pits at the moment. 11 minutes and 22 seconds to go. Here comes Norris to go quickest, 2 tenths quicker than Yuki Tsunoda. Verstappen and Perez are on quick laps. Sound you can hear now is Hamilton in the Mercedes through the middle sector split, and he is half a second down on Norris, but he is on the medium tyre, Lewis Hamilton, as he comes through 130R and then down into the chicane, onto the brakes and through the right at 55 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour through the left part of the chicane, and then out across the line, and Hamilton slots into third place in between the two AlphaTauris. Perez is half a second up on Lando Norris after the middle sector. Verstappen is quicker than Perez in the first sector by 2 tenths of a second. So Perez will soon go to the top of the times. There he goes, a 1 minute 30.622. But Verstappen is up on Perez's time. Carlos Sainz has come through sector 1 and pretty much matched Verstappen. Middle sector is good from Verstappen. I'll keep an eye on Sainz's middle sector. Verstappen goes to the top, 4 tenths quicker than Perez, a 1 minute 30.224, but Sainz is going quicker at the moment.
So I don't know whether it's because we've spoken about it so many times, Jack. But going on board with Hamilton, it just looks like when he gets towards, above sort of 270, 280 kilometers an hour, it's like the car hits a brick wall and doesn't continue to accelerate. You hear it from the engine. It doesn't look free and easy to continue to accelerate, whereas you watch the Honda powered Red Bull and the aerodynamics on the Red Bull, and the car continues to push through the air, and you hear the engine note change constantly down the straight.
Verstappen, quick. Sainz has just gone second fastest in the Ferrari, only a tenth away from Max Verstappen and ahead of Sergio Perez. Charles Leclerc is 2 tenths down on Verstappen after sector 1, and then Daniel Ricciardo is 4th quickest at the moment, 6 tenths ahead of his teammate Lando Norris. Stroll is 6th, Tsunoda's 7th, Russell, Vettel, Hamilton, Gasly, the 11 drivers at the moment. Mick Schumacher comes through to go 7th fastest, so that's a big jump up the order from Schumacher to get ahead of both AlphaTauris. The Mercedes, a reminder, on the medium tyre on that first run, so they're giving themselves a little bit of work to do, Mercedes, just in case of a red flag or something similar. They could be up in a bit of trouble. They'll be hoping they won't be, of course. Here comes Leclerc across the line, and he too goes within 2 tenths of Max Verstappen. Did the fastest middle sector of anyone, did Charles Leclerc, but 2 tenths down in sector 1 compared to Carlos Sainz. So that's where he lost some time. So there's more time in it for both of the Ferraris. 8 minutes and 23 seconds on the clock. Here comes Joe across the line. Bottas has gone 6th. Joe goes 10th. So Bottas in between the two McLarens, but there's quite a big gap really between Ricciardo and the rest of the midfield. It's a great lap that from
Ricciardo's
Ricciardo.
done a great job, but I still think that even though he's done that lap, I think he might have to go again, Jack. Because I think that there is quite a lot of track evolution out there. I mean, Verstappen, Sainz, Leclerc, they're fine. I think that they're going to be absolutely fine. But everybody else, I think you're going to have to run again.
Alex Albon, a second down after the middle sector on Verstappen. So that's pretty decent actually here. I wonder where this is going to slot Alex Albon. Maybe ahead of Tsunoda and possibly...
Yeah, I got a bit out of the rhythm with the high speed with some cars.
Yeah, saw that. Tsunoda, just Alonso and Ocon yet to set lap times. Ocon goes into 6th place and Alonso goes 4th. Alonso just 3 tenths back from Max Verstappen and up into 4th place in the Alpine. It's rapid around here by the looks of things, that Alpine. 7 minutes and 7 seconds left on the clock. We're just having a look at Lando Norris, who almost got into the gravel on the exit of Degner 2, picked up a little bit of gravel on the left-hand side. And was that when was that lap from Norris, I wonder? That might have been could potentially have been his quick lap, or he might have been pushing again.
He backed off on that lap, Jack, so then he backed off and went again.
Yeah.
But by that point, you've taken a lot out of the tyre in the first sector, so that I think that's probably contributed to the difference between him and Daniel Ricciardo.
Gasly and Tsunoda are on quite strong laps here.
Problem with the brakes, what is going on?
Tsunoda is now coming out of the final corner. Where's this going to put him? Up into 10th.
Problem with the brakes, what is going on?
Gasly got a problem with the brakes. He's up into 9th. Tsunoda is 10th. Verstappen is quickest. Sainz 2nd. Leclerc 3rd. Alonso 4th. Perez 5th. Ricciardo, Ocon, Bottas, Gasly, Tsunoda the top 10. Norris only in 11th. 12th for Stroll. 13th is Schumacher. 14th is Joe, 15th is Albon. At the moment, eliminated would be Russell, Magnussen, Vettel, Hamilton and Latifi. But the Mercedes are both on outlaps, on a set of soft tyres, ready to get going again. And hopefully they will book themselves a place in Q2. Jenny.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton just taking the first position out there on track, and George Russell following him on track, as you say, both on those new soft tyres.
Big lockup.
Braking's not amazing. Braking's not amazing.
I don't know what he said.
Said braking's not amazing.
Oh,
you can see why. He actually did very well to see the fact that he had an enormous lockup and he was carrying far too much speed into the corner, and used the curb, took an enormous amount of curb, used the curb to slow the car and turn the car. Good thinking.
Hamilton out on a set of soft tyres with 5 minutes to go. 19th quickest at the moment, Lewis Hamilton. 16th for George Russell, as they get ready to do their run on the softs, basically, when everybody else is back in the pit lane, fundamentally. Albon has just had a lap time deleted for track limits at turn 14, so he now has no lap time.
Work on brakes, straight. Work on brakes, straight line braking when you can.
Yeah, I know, I'm doing.
Work on the brakes in the straight line. Both the AlphaTauri struggling with their brakes.
I tell you what, the AlphaTauri boys don't speak very nicely to their team, do they? I mean,
turn 13, by the way, is Spoon. It's the first part of Spoon. Andrew Benson.
Franz Tost, the AlphaTauri team principal, was saying in the news conference earlier today that Yuki Tsunoda still needs to work on his discipline, both in and out of the car. That message has been... He's been struggling to knock that message into Tsunoda's head for about 20 months now, hasn't he? Just hasn't gone in.
Exactly. 3 minutes and 42 seconds on the clock. The Mercedes are out on circuit. They've done okay first sectors. Not setting the world alight on those soft tyres, but probably enough to see them through. Hamilton coming through the second part of Spoon. He's further around the lap than Russell is through that middle sector. Hamilton now, and he is about 4 tenths down, so this is only going to be good enough for the sort of middle of the pack here for Mercedes. Oh, Russell's going a little quicker than Hamilton by about 3 tenths of a second. Here they come out of the final corner. Hamilton goes fastest, and that's all on the run of the day. Might get another lap in potentially. Here comes Russell, and he goes up to 6th fastest. So at the moment they look very much slower than the Alpines, Mercedes, and are in that midfield fight.
I mean, we say it like we're surprised now. It has been a struggle for them all season. There's been glimpses of hope where they've been relatively quick. I mean, obviously George Russell getting pole position in Hungary being the highlight of showing pace, but they've never really gone to a weekend as they have in the last 6 or 7 years and dominated, have they? They've always struggled, and we're always sounding shocked that they're struggling. Well, look, they've struggled all year.
Yeah, but they're usually a bit clear in the midfield, aren't they? They're usually a little clear of the McLarens and the Alpines. Jenny?
Yeah, I think they were always aware that Japan might not have been a track that would suit their car this year. It has been, they've been so dominant at Japan for so many years, but this year it's all different since the regulation change. And when they were looking at races they thought they could challenge in, this is definitely not one of them. They highlighted America potentially, if it wasn't too bumpy, potentially.
They're power circuits. I mean, Brazil and Austin, you need good straight line speed ability, and that's something that the Mercedes just doesn't have this season.
Verstappen still 30.2.
I'm not sure I'm going to improve on that.
We're going to try anyway.
There in 14th, so the Aston Martins, after looking quite spicy in free practice 3 earlier on, are now a little bit nowhere. Vettel's only 700ths up on Schumacher after the first sector, and Schumacher's time is the 15th quickest. Stroll's done a reasonable first sector, which is a couple of tenths quicker than Vettel has managed. Bottas is 4 tenths away from Verstappen after sector 1. He's running in 10th place at the moment, Valtteri Bottas. The top 5 have all elected to stay in the pit lane. So Verstappen, Sainz, Leclerc, Alonso and Perez all happy enough with their job out there. Stroll is on a bad lap here, Lance Stroll. I wonder if he's made a mistake somewhere. His first sector was reasonable. Oh, he's finding some time now in the middle.
I have massive pulling.
Before too long, Vettel onto the brakes, into the final couple of corners. He's going to be the first to come across the line. Latifi jumps up into 14th place. Lando Norris is on a very quick lap in the McLaren. Here comes Vettel up to 10th. So Vettel up to 10th in the Aston Martin. Next across the line comes Lance Stroll, and he only goes 14th. That's going to be a tricky one for Stroll to make it through with Vettel in 10th position. Ocon goes up into 9th position. Bottas goes into 10th. So Bottas gets ahead of Vettel. Joe goes up into 8th place, quicker than Valtteri Bottas. Good lap from the Alfa Romeo driver, faster than his teammate. Now here come the Haas drivers. Schumacher is next across the line. He goes up into 11th position. And then Magnussen only goes 16th. So Schumacher out-qualifies Magnussen in the end, fairly comfortably. Lando Norris bouncing over the curbs as he comes through the chicane. Norris in the McLaren comes through.
This is what you get for this. It's a joke.
And Stroll are out of the running. Tsunoda gets up into 12th position. Tsunoda goes through into Q2. His teammate Gasly does not. And now it's going to be Albon or Vettel. Those are the two choices as to who will advance into the final part, into the second part of qualifying. Vettel's on the bubble at the moment in 15th, having set his lap time. Albon is just coming now into the final chicane in the Williams. Got his first lap time deleted for track limits at Spoon, gets on the power, out across the line, and Albon goes 16th. It's not enough, so Vettel makes it through. Albon eliminated in 16th, 17th for Gasly, 18th Magnussen, 19th Stroll, 20th Nicholas Latifi. And that's a good job from Tsunoda and Schumacher, you have to say. Tsunoda, Schumacher and Joe all ending that session quicker than their teammates, but Tsunoda and Schumacher making it through where
I've asked to wait. Why? Why they do it? Why are you doing with the other car, not with me? We had time. Yeah, but they have the brakes. No point to do the lap with no brakes. Can't brake. Yeah, but they have the brakes. No point to do the lap with no brakes. Can't brake.
Gasly, I never really heard Gasly that angry on the radio before.
I think he is quite animated. You've heard him when it's going well, he's very loud and very animated. When it's gone badly, he can be as well. And I think the relationship at that team between himself and the engineers is fractured. It seems like he's now just annoyed all the time, and nothing that they do will please him. He's had an issue with the brakes, and it's everybody else's fault now. You know, he's moving on, so it's everybody else's fault. It is difficult when you've got issues with brakes. Trust me, it's not a fun thing. But you know, I hope that he can continue to work well with his engineers for the rest of the season. Otherwise, it's not going to be pleasant for either the engineers or himself.
Sam, I spoke to him last week after the race in the media pen, and he was the angriest I've ever seen him. He was fuming. He was very, very quick to throw blame at the team for messing up. They brought him in on the wrong lap, and yeah, he was furious. And I remember recording the podcast afterwards, and Jack and I going, well, clearly the announcement's coming this week then, because there's no way he's going to be staying at the team and letting off such a tirade of disappointment towards AlphaTauri.
We're through, Mick. Good job.
Sport really, where you can get away with doing that, or throw the team under the bus, or speaking badly about your team, and then, you know, it's fine for you to drive the next weekend. If you did that as a Premier League footballer or a rugby player, you would be benched for the rest of the season, or sold
through, Mick. Good job.
immediately.
Schumacher being told they were through to the second part of qualifying. Yeah, it's so true. I hadn't really thought of that before. But yeah, Gasly out. Verstappen quickest, Sainz second, Leclerc third, Alonso fourth, Perez, Ocon, Russell, Ricciardo, Norris and Joe the top 10. Hamilton in 11th, ahead of Tsunoda, Schumacher, Bottas and Vettel. The 15 that will advance through the second part of qualifying. Jenny?
Yeah, and a good one for Mick.
Just you get one little twitch and the corner's gone. It's the window Our drivability is just so poor.
Against Nico Hulkenberg for his seat at Haas next year. And he had a big crash yesterday after the checkered flag in free practice 1. They've had to put him in the spare chassis because there was so much damage. So as a precaution, rather than trying to rebuild it and work out what was really damaged, they just put him in a spare chassis. So he missed all of the running in free practice 2, which was a wet session. So not too damaging to him, but he really needs a good weekend this weekend to try and win back some favour with Günther Steiner. Apparently it cost £450,000 to fix that car. That's a lot of money.
I'd give Schumacher another year, honestly, if it were me. I'd give him one more. But if all you're going to do is bring back Hulkenberg, who I rate very highly, don't get me wrong, I think Schumacher for me has done enough for another season. It's not set the world alight, don't get me wrong, but I don't see the harm in another year, other than I suppose quite literally the accident costs, because there was. But that's kind of dialed back a little bit, hasn't it, since Monaco? There was some big crashes earlier in the year, and Monaco was one of them. And Günther Steiner said we can't afford to keep crashing. But yeah, I don't know. I'd give Schumacher one more year. Jenny?
I'm in your camp as well. I also think I'd probably give him another year. And when you qualifying, he's been consistently outperformed by Kevin Magnussen. It's 5-13 now. But in races, Schumacher 10-5. So I know he's only on 12 points compared to Magnussen, but actually when it comes to the pairing and the battles between them, final finishing places, he's done better than I thought.
Yeah. Look, I'm...
Okay, Pierre, let's see where we end up. Try to focus on the hard braking in the in-lap, please, to try to recover them for Q2 if we can get there.
It's completely off. I have no efficiency, nothing.
Okay, sorry. We're not in...
junior program that they wanted to swap in for Schumacher, then I'd be all for it. But I don't know, just bring back Hulkenberg. Give Schumacher another year, would be my opinion. There we go. I'm not the boss of an F1 team. And if I were, it would be MasterCard Lola, probably. Cars out on track because they were a terrible team. That was just what I'm referencing. Other credit cards are available. I don't know. 14 minutes and 26 seconds on the clock. Straight out go the Ferraris on a new set of on a used set of soft tyres. So the Ferrari's going out on the set of tyres.
Looks like sunny south, so it could be a slower track. Copy.
Drew?
Oh.
More of an opinion. I want his opinion, really.
Well, good luck.
This year's Mercedes, is this in the last... So they've been... Science Radio?
Looks like sunny south, so it could be a slower track. Copy.
So they've now been back in Formula One since 2010. Is this car their worst car?
No, but it is their worst for 10 years.
Yep.
Yeah. And obviously the big question is they've been about 0.8 of a second off on average in qualifying over the course of this year. Typically that's not the sort of margin that a team can make up in the course of a winter.
That's everybody on the line. We finished P18. It was very tight.
It's quite good on high downforce circuits. It's quite good on tyre wear. It's got a problem with it runs too stiff. It's not good on high. It's got too much drag. And there were question marks about the whole philosophy of the car. The sound you can hear, by the way, is Carlos Sainz just starting his qualifying lap on those used tyres. Because their car is so different philosophically from the Red Bull, at least from the outside. Of course, all the engineers tell you that it's the underfloor that makes the difference now, the bits you can't see, because in these new ground effect cars, that's where all the downforce is being created. So actually, maybe the side pod concept doesn't make too much difference. I don't know. They're being very coy about what they're doing with next year's car, other than saying they think they understand why this year's car's not quick. But realistically, realistically, maybe they will surprise me, but realistically, you wouldn't expect them to make up that sort of margin on Red Bull, especially given that Red Bull are going to, they're going to have learned an awful lot from this year, and they will be making, no doubt, a big step forward for next year with their car too.
It'll be fascinating to see come Bahrain next year. 11 minutes and 50 seconds to go. Still got a few more races to come this year, of course, as Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc are both coming through the final couple of corners now. 1 minute 30.2 was the quickest lap time in Q1, and across the line, and it's a 30.4 for Sainz, a tenth slower than he managed in Q1. Leclerc is going quicker though, as he comes in out of the final chicane and ends up not going quicker, a 1 minute 30.486. So they both were about 10th slower than they managed in the first part of.
Those guys are all going to bunch up now.
It shouldn't be too bad. There's only 3 cars there.
It was wrong. The track isn't slower, even though the sun's come out, doesn't it? If they can both go quicker on new tyres.
Yeah, true. Depends how long the sun's out for, I guess. Track temperature at the moment 26 degrees. Air temperature is 20 degrees. Sainz and Leclerc, the only drivers to have set a lap time so far in Q2, but everybody else is out on circuit again now. Sergio Perez is at the head of the queue. Then I think it's Vettel who's just ahead of Verstappen. So here comes Perez out of the final corner. The top 10 advance through to the final part of qualifying. And Perez comes down towards turn 1 now in the Red Bull. Swings into the right-hander. Fascinated to see who's going to make a Mercedes at threat for getting into Q2.
I think if they don't drive at their best, then yes, absolutely, Jack, because you've got Norris, who didn't do a representative lap time. I think he's got the potential to be ahead of them. Ricciardo drove well in the first session. He has the potential. Yeah, and the two Alpines look, dare I say, stronger. So it might be a bit of a struggle.
Verstappen and Perez and Tsunoda have all gone out on a used set of tyres. Everybody else is on a new set of the soft tyres. Verstappen through the first sector, quickest first sector of anyone. 3 tenths quicker than his teammate Sergio Perez. And Verstappen 300ths up on Carlos Sainz in sector 1. Perez coming around Spoon Curve at the far end of the circuit, the furthest point away from the pit lane. And then he charges back over the bridge, over the crossing, and Perez is just over a tenth away from Carlos Sainz starting the final sector, and the final sector is basically just the chicane. A lot of corners in sectors 1 and 2 compared to sector 3. Here comes Perez, and he goes up into 3rd quickest, a quarter of a second away from Carlos Sainz. That's reasonably competitive for him. Verstappen is up after middle sector on Sainz's time. Vettel jumps up into 4th place, only 2 tenths slower than Sergio Perez. Norris is a quarter of a second down on Carlos Sainz's lap time after the first 2 sectors. Verstappen goes quicker though, a tenth of a second ahead of Carlos Sainz, just over a tenth ahead of Charles Leclerc. So it's looking very tight, but Verstappen does seem to have the edge. Tsunoda up into 6th place on his used tyres. Norris goes 5th in the McLaren. Here come the Mercedes. Through the middle sector comes Hamilton, and he's 2 tenths down on Verstappen. George Russell, meanwhile, is 1 tenth down on Verstappen. Ocon's gone ahead of Alonso.
The brake is open again. Brake is open again, I think.
Let's try straight line braking. It's okay, it's okay. Offset,
No, I can't.
offset 1.
Brake is so bad.
Work on these brakes. We need to manage the situation, Yuki.
No lap times yet for Ricciardo. Ricciardo suddenly goes up into 5th place. Daniel Ricciardo's back. Up into 5th position. And Bottas goes into 10th place. Here comes Joe out of the final corner, and he goes 13th. So eliminated at the moment would be Norris, Vettel, Joe, Schumacher and Tsunoda. Tsunoda's just complained on the radio, the brakes are so bad. At the moment, the order up at the front: Verstappen, Sainz, Leclerc, Ocon, Ricciardo, the top 5. Hamilton, Alonso, Perez, Russell, Bottas, the top 10. And we're just getting a replay of a little slide for Fernando Alonso at Degner 2, but nothing too remarkable. Andrew Benson.
I think Alonso was on used tyres on that run, is that right?
No.
No?
The yellow button is to rearward and a brake.
Okay, mate.
What do you think about not using?
We'll have a look and get back to you on that one.
The last couple of years to get a full handle on the McLaren philosophy and especially be comfortable on the brakes. But this weekend, he's come alive a little bit more, hasn't he? I mean, we know that he's leaving Formula One next year, maybe a little bit of pressure, but he's genuinely found pace within that car this weekend and is beating Lando for outright pace right now, which is good to see and good. Be great for his confidence moving forwards.
Jenny?
Yeah, I think it was a confidence-building display last time out when he managed to get 5th place, bearing in mind he started 16th on the grid, I think it was, or even 17th on the grid. So he did a good job last time out, but they've also brought some upgrades to that car. Now, last time out was Norris who got the upgrade package first. They've bought enough parts so that Ricciardo gets the upgrade package this weekend, and it's a kind of for looking at the philosophy for next season, but maybe it suits him a little bit better in that car. Good to see him back though and doing well out there.
Everybody returning to the pits ahead of their second run in the second part of qualifying. It just, the thing is with Ricciardo, it never felt like a... Okay, there's confidence in yourself and confidence in the car, I suppose, are two separate things. And it never felt like a... Because the amount of good results Ricciardo's had that you'd think, right, he's had a good result now, he'll crack on. He won at Monza last year and you think, right, here we go. And then that never materialised into anything. So it never felt like it was a Ricciardo's self-confidence kind of issue.
But he's never going to portray that to the outside world.
True.
There's portraying it to the outside world. As a sportsman, you would never do that. But then it's when you get back to the hotel room, when you're alone with your own thoughts, that's when the doubts creep in. He won at Monza, absolutely, and it was a great drive. He won at Monza because a load of other people had issues.
Yeah.
And he comes through the field. He has some decent results, but it's the qualifying performances that are poor. Reminds me very much of my own season. You know, it's that kind of thing, and he can portray a confident man, but behind closed doors it might not be the case. He might have had some self-doubt. A result like this where he has absolute genuine pace will do him the world of good.
4 minutes and 25 seconds remaining. And the order is Verstappen, Sainz, Leclerc, Ocon, Ricciardo, the top 5, Hamilton, Alonso, Perez, Russell, Bottas, the top 10 would be advancing through at the moment. But eliminated would be Norris, Vettel, Zhou, Schumacher and Tsunoda. But they're all going to do one more lap.
I mean, look at the Alpines really challenging up there this weekend. Great to see. I can't believe yet again Alonso's leaving a team that looks like it's starting to get a little bit of momentum and going to where obviously Sebastian Vettel sits right now, and Vettel's done a decent job to get that car into a current P12 at the moment, but that car would presumably not make it through to the third part of qualifying, and yet again it'll be starting from scratch for Fernando. And
well, but here's my philosophical question to you, Samuel Bird. Vettel's 2 tenths ahead of Alonso at the moment.
No, it's not. Alonso's 2 tenths ahead of Vettel.
Alonso's 2 tenths ahead of Vettel at the moment. Is Alonso 2 tenths quicker than Vettel?
This is not good for the brake. Come on.
You can open the gap.
Compared to that, and suddenly it's the same as the Alpine. Deep question.
It's a very deep question, but also you look at the season, the Alpine has always been quicker than the Aston Martin. The Aston Martin has massively struggled for qualifying pace. They look a little bit better in the races, and they do tend to come through, and points are scored, but qualifying performances have been, I think, very weak.
I know what Fernando Alonso would say in answer to that question if he was sitting here and would talk off the record, because he wouldn't say it on the record because he's too polite.
Would he say it?
Would say yes. 100%.
Would he say it in Spanish?
He would.
And if he did, how would he say it?
I don't know. I don't speak enough Spanish to say that. He would say, yes, I'm 3 tenths quicker than Sebastian Vettel, and he would use as evidence his pace advantage over Kimi Raikkonen when they were teammates compared to Sebastian Vettel's advantage over.
Don't disagree. It'll be interesting to see what Aston Martin are like next year. 2 minutes and 6 seconds on the clock. Verstappen, Sainz and Leclerc all remaining in the pits. Everybody else out on circuit to try and book themselves a place in the final part of qualifying. And it's going to be everybody out on a brand new set of tyres. I think Tsunoda may struggle, considering how bad he thinks the brakes are. At the moment, it's Joe, Schumacher and Tsunoda, those three who did well in Q1, who are 13th, 14th and 15th. Norris will want to get up into the top 10. Russell's in a bit of danger in 9th position. There's one fan with an air horn as Vettel comes around the first corner. And now into the S's, the really spectacular sequence of corners. And then up through the left-hander of Dunlop, Sebastian Vettel, Jenny Gao.
They have a new floor. They got it in Singapore, but because of the weather, they weren't really able to see what effect it was going to have. They were confident about it. That's why they put it on the car, so they told me. But it looks like it's really starting to have a decent impact on that car.
Perez does the fastest first sector that we've seen in the session so far. He's the only one of the front runners out on a new set of tyres, though. Or only one of the Ferraris or the Red Bulls that's gone out of the pits full stop and is on a new set of tyres. So you'd expect him to go to the top of the times, to be honest with you. But Ocon's on a quick lap here as well. Coming through the middle sector now, heading up towards Spoon. Bottas has done a pretty slow sector 1. Vettel's a couple of tenths up on Bottas' time. Bottas is the man in 10th place currently. Eliminated as it stands, Norris, Vettel, Joe, Schumacher and Tsunoda. Vettel is going to be the first driver to set a lap time. Comes down the hill now and across the timing beam. And Vettel goes up into 5th place. Not bad at all there for Vettel. Ahead of Ricciardo, Hamilton and Alonso. But everybody else is going to improve.
Ocon up to 2nd, Jack.
Yeah, Esteban Ocon goes 2nd quickest. Perez goes fastest now. So George Russell needs to improve because he's in 10th place. Valtteri Bottas comes across the line and he only stays 11th. Bottas doesn't improve in the Alfa Romeo. What can Joe do in the other Alfa Romeo? He goes up into 12th, so he doesn't get through either. So Schumacher, Tsunoda and Norris are the drivers to watch. And Schumacher only goes 14th. Here comes Lando Norris. Well, actually, it's going to be Tsunoda next across the line at his home race. And it's 12th place for Yuki Tsunoda. Lando Norris or George Russell. Across the line comes Norris. He goes to 5th place. So at the moment, Russell would be eliminated, but he's on a quicker lap. Fernando Alonso is on the bubble, in 10th position now. Here comes Alonso, he goes 2nd. So Ricciardo is on the bubble. After all that talk of Ricciardo, he could be getting knocked out in Q2. He comes across the line and doesn't improve. So Ricciardo or Russell, eliminated from the second part of qualifying, and it's Ricciardo. Russell goes up into 7th place. Ricciardo 11th, out. 12th Bottas, out. Tsunoda 13th, out. Joe 14th, out. Mick Schumacher 15th, out. Half a second away in the end, Mick Schumacher. Nowhere near getting through. But Ricciardo, after all that chat that we just had, ends up being beaten by Norris by a couple of tenths of a second and is eliminated in the second part of qualifying. Just having a look at Mick Schumacher, who has kind of overtaken Yuki Tsunoda on the way out of the pits there, Mick Schumacher. So something that happened earlier on.
So dangerous for Schumacher.
Copy.
We might now hear Tsunoda shouting on the radio. Oh, and he then has gone back past Schumacher, has he?
So dangerous for Schumacher.
Copy.
Nothing really happened. Schumacher was weaving around. Tsunoda sort of tried to pass him, but it was clear that Schumacher was weaving around. I've not got much to say about that. Do you have much to say about that?
They should come and do Formula E and see some of the dangerous stuff there, if they think that's dangerous.
So, Perez, Alonso, Verstappen, Ocon, Hamilton. Here's Tsunoda's radio.
I did my best.
Yeah, it was a pretty good lap for us.
They were pleased with Tsunoda. Went 3 tenths quicker in Q2 than he managed in Q1. so not bad at all.
I'd be interested to know what the issue is at the AlphaTauri team with regards to the brakes, because both cars have been struggling with it.
Daniel, we're P11, 3 milliseconds behind Vettel.
Process, but it is the repeatability of the discs and pads is pretty good now from all these manufacturers. So it must be a software issue, how the brake bias is blending out.
Daniel, we're P11, 3 milliseconds behind Vettel.
Ricciardo, even when he came into the pit lane just then, was sort of banging his head and shaking his head, very frustrated to have been eliminated from the second part of qualifying. 3 milliseconds is 3,000ths of a second. Jenny?
Tell you what, I think Leclerc got a little bit lucky then. I mean, Ferrari was sailing close to the wind. He ended up 9th because he didn't go back out again.
Okay, unfortunately we are in P11.
Dropped Leclerc out before he managed to get to the final part of quali.
Yeah, it's true. In 9th place, I think it would have taken a lot for your Schumachers and your Joes and your Tsunodas to have got up ahead of him. But was that a lockup from Ricciardo?
Yeah, that's
as he came into the chicane, and that is maybe what cost him. Really frustrated with that one, Daniel Ricciardo, as he moves to the pits and is out of the session, as is Bottas in 12th, Tsunoda 13th, Joe 14th, Schumacher 15th. So, who are we saying for pole?
Who are we saying for pole?
Is it a stupid question?
No, not at all. It's actually very difficult to answer, Jack. I would, if I were a betting man, and I'm not.
Yes, boys. Yes. Good luck, I'm ecstatic with this lap. Well done. Great job.
Sergio Perez has just done a decent lap, so you think, maybe he could be front row. You've got both Ferraris that look okay.
Yes. Good luck, I'm ecstatic with this lap. Well done. Great job.
Vettel ecstatic.
And then you've got Fernando Alonso. Throw him in. I think that there's potential, if he gets it right and the timing right, crosses the line at the right time, he could throw it in the mix and get a front row, or at least a front 2 rows. So there's lots of interesting things to look out for. It's very, when you watch onboards of the Red Bull versus the Ferrari, how they construct the lap is actually quite different. The Ferrari is able to really wallop and ride curbs, and they're able to use more track because of that, especially at Degner and the final chicane, whereas Max Verstappen looks like he's not using any of the track really in comparison to Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc, yet the lap time is very, very close. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lovely moment there. I don't know this for sure, but in the Aston Martin garage there was a young Japanese fan dressed in sort of green overalls with the Aston Martin logo sort of stuck on, you know, kind of like the thing your mum would make you when you were a kid, and he was standing at the front of all the mechanics as they were watching. So in my head they've seen him around and have invited him into the garage. That's what I like to think has happened, because he's certainly not just a member of the team, that's for sure. Jenny, who's for pole?
I'm still going to go Charles Leclerc. I know everyone's going to go, ooh, but they're not really on four. I still think he'll find something. He's had 9 poles so far this season, and okay, he might have only converted 2 into wins, but I still think when it comes to it, they turn the wick up and they've got just enough.
Well, here's the thing, Jen. We were talking about Charles Leclerc in 9th. He's 1/10 behind Verstappen, who was 3rd at the end of that session. It was so close out there. There was 1,000th between Hamilton and Sainz. So, yeah, I think Leclerc's still in with a shot.
For such a long track as well. This track's 5.8 kilometres. It's one of the longest we go to. It's quite incredible that there's such a small gap between them.
Benson San?
Well, unless I'm mistaken on tyres again, Verstappen, Leclerc and Sainz have all got through qualifying on 1 set so far.
Correct.
So they used new in the first session and used in the second. So they're a mile ahead of everybody else on that basis. So it's going to be one of those 3. I think it's going to take a Leclerc special to beat Verstappen. And it doesn't look like Leclerc I don't want to tempt fate. He doesn't look quite on it this weekend so far, but then he's looked a bit like that at other races this year, and then has actually pulled out a special in Q3. So I think it'll be Verstappen unless he can do that. Is my prediction.
Okay, the prediction is it'll be Verstappen unless someone goes quicker than him.
Come on.
Right, out onto the circuit we go. 11 minutes and 55 seconds on the clock. And we're about to see the battle for pole position. It was a Ferrari front row lockout last time that Formula One was here in 2019. Will it be the same today? Unlikely, because Verstappen looks so strong. And in the battle for the championship, he can win it this week. If he wins the race and sets the fastest lap, he will be the world champion of 2022. If he wins the race and Charles Leclerc is not second, then he will be the champion of 2022. And there are other permutations if he finishes lower down the order. And depending on who qualifies where, we'll give you all those permutations tomorrow. Race gets underway. Race will nearly be done. Race will probably be done, actually, this time tomorrow. It starts at 6 o'clock in the morning in the UK, 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Japan. And everybody is now trying to find a little bit of space on the circuit. Everybody is... so Ocon's on a set of used tyres. Hamilton's on a set of used tyres. Russell's on a set of used tyres. Everybody else is on a new set of tyres as they make their way out onto the circuit now. Because Alonso, I think, only did one run in Q1, and that's why he's able to have a new, whereas Esteban Ocon, his teammate, is on a used set of tyres. Sebastian Vettel still yet to leave the pit lane in the Aston Martin. So Perez is the quickest time we've seen so far, a 1 minute 29.9, but I would expect pole position to maybe be...
The wind is the same as previous lap.
Something like that is what I'm going to chuck out there as a prediction. Charles Leclerc just looking in his mirror as he comes very slowly toward the final chicane, give himself as much room as possible. He's going to be the first of the front runners to do a lap. Gets on the power. Coming down into the first corner now. DRS open. And swings in the first corner at 202 miles an hour. The Ferrari comes into turn 1, which tightens and tightens into turn 2. And Leclerc flies through those first couple of corners. Esteban Ocon through the first sector does a 31.7, which is 4/10 away from the best first sector we've seen, which was set by Sergio Perez. Leclerc now climbs the hill, comes through the first sector, timing split, and does the fastest first sector of the day. Very quick first third of the lap for Charles Leclerc, neat and tidy through the two Degner corners as well. Max Verstappen, though, is coming down into turn 1, and he's going quicker than Leclerc across the line and into the first couple of corners now. Alonso starts a flying lap. Sainz has gone quicker than Leclerc in sector 1. Verstappen coming through the first sector split now. What's he got compared to the Ferraris? He's quicker still. Verstappen almost a 10th up on Sainz and Leclerc in the sector, but it was the middle sector where Ferrari looked particularly strong over the course of the weekend so far, and it is a quick middle sector from Charles Leclerc. He's coming down now into the final chicane. Ocon does a 1 minute 31.1 on his used tyres. Leclerc throws it through the right and the left at 55 miles an hour, then gets on the power again, out across the line, and Leclerc does a 1 minute 29.557. That's the benchmark time. Verstappen is going quicker than him. Perez across the line is 4/10 slower. Verstappen on provisional pole position. Hamilton goes 5th fastest in the Mercedes. His teammate George Russell then usurps him. So Russell 5th, Hamilton 6th. Norris 7th, Ocon 8th. Fernando Alonso goes into 4th position. 5th position. So Alonso gets ahead of the two Mercedes, but it is advantage Verstappen, and by a quarter of a second as well. That's a good opening lap from Verstappen.
Oh, very good lap indeed, as we ride on board with Lando Norris, just getting a little bit of space.
I'm throttling with understeer.
Okay, more flat for the next one.
Yeah, we got.
Okay, copy. How many clicks? 29.3 for Max.
Yeah, let's do 2 clicks.
2 clicks, copy.
I'm Verstappen, and Verstappen, he nearly lost it.
It's unbelievable.
So Verstappen tried to, well, I don't know if he did nearly lose it, or he's trying to warm up the tyre. Yeah,
I
so
think that's absolutely Verstappen's fault.
Verstappen's tried to warm up the tyres, the back end is kicked out, and he's almost lost it by himself, but he probably was still in control. But Norris has had to take huge evasive action. So I mean,
it's a bit unnecessary, really.
Because they're both on outlaps, I don't know if that counts as impeding. Like, if Norris were on a quick lap, Verstappen's getting a penalty, no problem.
It might be a visit to the stewards to explain why that car attitude, why the flare-up of the rear wheels at that particular moment, because it was unnecessary. But I don't think that it'll be a penalty. It might be maybe a penalty point. I'm not sure, but I'm not sure.
Sebastian Vettel's on a lap now in the Aston Martin. He's gone out in the middle part of the session where everybody else is in the pit, so he's got the track to himself as Sebastian Vettel. 4 wins here with Red Bull in the past, and he's coming down towards 130R. Russell returns to the pit lane now, so it's just Vettel on circuit. He's 8 tenths away from Verstappen. This is his one run of the session, Sebastian Vettel. And so he's got a shot here of maybe slotting in ahead of the Mercedes. Gets on the power out of the final corner, and Vettel does go up into 6th place, ahead of Russell, Hamilton, Norris and Ocon. But they all did their laps on used tyres. So Vettel is apart from Norris, the slowest of the drivers on new tyres. Very interesting pace from Norris there in 9th place. We're also getting a replay now of Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez, and Lando Norris going side by side, and Verstappen apologising, I think, to Norris, holding his hand out the window, but you know, out the pit, doing a little, yep, sorry, that was my fault. So Verstappen on provisional pole position, Leclerc 2nd, Sainz 3rd, Perez 4th, 7 tenths separating the top 4, Alonso 5th, Vettel 6th, Russell 7th, Hamilton 8th, 9th for Norris, 10th for Ocon. That is with Norris and Verstappen, will be investigated after the session. As I say, if Norris were on a quick lap, that would be an instant penalty. I just wonder if on an
Okay, boys, good session. Oh, I really enjoyed it. This track is just so much better than all the other ones. Thank you.
Yeah, well done. Great job.
The grass to avoid it. Here's some radio from Vettel.
Okay, boys, good session. Oh, I really enjoyed it. This track is just so much better than all the other ones. Thank you.
Yeah, well done. Great job. Vettel saying this track better than all the other ones. He said on Thursday that he'd happily do a one-off return to Suzuka, didn't he?
So look, back to the Verstappen incident. Do I think the stewards are going to penalise Max Verstappen with a grid penalty on the weekend he's poised to become world champion? No, I don't. Should they? I think that's the more open question.
And what's your answer?
I don't really know. I think you could argue it either way, just like you're trying to. But I don't know the answer. But it was a dangerous situation without question.
It was a dangerous situation, but I can't be bothered to give him a penalty. You know what I mean? It's one of those where it's just like, yeah, it's not ideal, but it's not great. But he doesn't know that Norris has floored it, does he? When everyone's on prep laps, who knows? 2 minutes and 40 seconds to go. Well, obviously, Andrew Benson will keep you up to date on the BBC Sport website if there is any decision to be made. 2.5 minutes on the clock. We're in for the final runs.
The only thing that could really hurt Verstappen in this case is if Norris Vettel radio.
Vettel's last race at Suzuka as he's leaving at the end of the year, and says thank you to Suzuka in Japanese on the radio.
If Norris can prove that he genuinely lost pace in sector 1,
Everything you got, please, mate.
dirt on the tyres, then genuinely Verstappen could be in trouble if there's data to back that up.
Yeah, it's almost like if there's a protest from McLaren, he could be in trouble. If McLaren don't really protest it, then one of those that could just pass by. Right, battle for pole position. Leclerc into turn 1 and 2. Can he find a quarter of a second to beat Max Verstappen and hope that Verstappen doesn't find that time himself? Coming now up the hill through Dunlop. Thank you very much. We're in the final part of qualifying, the final laps to determine pole position. If Max Verstappen wins the Grand Prix tomorrow and sets the fastest lap of the race, he will be the world champion of 2022, and that could all start with a pole position. That's where he is provisionally at the moment after the first run. But Charles Leclerc is improving on this lap. He's coming through the middle sector split now with just a third of the lap to go, and he's up by 0.2 of a second on Max Verstappen, and Verstappen hasn't done a particularly good first sector. Charles Leclerc absolutely flying in the Ferrari, gets onto the brakes, through the chicane, out across the line. His teammate Carlos Sainz is going too. Here comes Leclerc, and he doesn't quite beat Verstappen. He misses out by 1/100th of a second. Surely Verstappen is going to be starting on pole position now. Leclerc couldn't quite do it. Through the final corner comes Sergio Perez in the other Red Bull. Can he jump up the order? No, he remains in 4th place. Carlos Sainz finishes the session in 3rd, and Max Verstappen, even though he's not on a particularly strong lap, is still going to set pole by the looks of things. He's 9 thousandths down on his previous best. Gets onto the brakes from 200 miles an hour down to 50 miles an hour. Back on the power again. Bit of wheel spin. Drives towards the line. Verstappen doesn't improve, but it's still enough to take pole position for the Japanese Grand Prix. 1/100th of a second ahead of Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz in 3rd. The top 3 separated by 6/100ths. Perez will be 4th, Ocon 5th on the grid, Hamilton down in 6th, Alonso in 7th, Russell 8th, Vettel 9th, Lando Norris in 10th. But Max Verstappen, Chris, has put himself in the perfect position to wrap up the title tomorrow morning with pole position in Suzuka. Ocon then out qualifying Alonso in a very, very good effort from the Frenchman, but Verstappen on pole.
Yeah, not the ideal start to that last lap, but not bad, guys, not bad.
Yeah, well done, Max.
Yeah, not the ideal start to that last lap, but not bad, guys, not bad.
Yeah, well done, Max. That was a couple of very mighty laps there. Well done.
Yeah.
Because there's 1/100th. He had 2/10 in the pocket going into what looked like the final chicane. And I don't know whether he just...
Whoa, Verstappen had a big moment at turn 2.
Yeah, that's a couple of tenths there for Max. So, but I think both could argue then. Looks like both could argue. And he's lost some bodywork as well, which would have been absolute downforce and lap time. Looks like from the rear of the car, Jack?
Yeah, from the sort of floor or the rear. That was a huge snap for Verstappen. Did well to save it. But yeah, 100th separating Verstappen and Leclerc. Sainz in 3rd, Perez in 4th, Ocon 5th, Hamilton, Alonso, Vettel, Norris, the rest of the top 10. If it finishes like this tomorrow, then it will depend on fastest lap. Who gets the fastest lap to determine who is or whether Verstappen is the world champion. Ferrari's 2nd and 3rd. I think we could be in for a good Grand Prix tomorrow. I like that setup, but so often this season it's been close in qualifying, but then Verstappen disappears in the Grand Prix.
Absolutely. I mean, if Charles Leclerc is to take this to the next Grand Prix in Austin, he's not only got to have a big day, but Carlos Sainz has got to have a huge day. because he's really got to get in the mix and help out.
Max Verstappen then in front of the huge grandstand, climbs out of the car, waves to the crowd, who give him a appreciative cheer, having seen a very strong lap from Verstappen. Still, that first lap was good enough.
So close. Yeah, very close.
Play a part in this, though. Rain expected when the race starts getting worse towards the race end. Could make it interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another thing to factor into the equation. Verstappen is crouching down, looking at the rear of the car, because he'll know that he would have lost a bit of bodywork or a little bit of damage that he would have picked up down there. Charles Leclerc, second on the grid. A little high five with Leclerc as Verstappen goes over to get Wade and pats on the back at Ferrari on the pit wall as they appear satisfied enough with second and third on the grid. But even now, Verstappen and Red Bull's pace in qualifying is coming through, isn't it? Because Ferrari were...
Nicely done. All right.
Yeah, let's get these points tomorrow. Let's get these points tomorrow.
Monza, but Verstappen on pole in the Netherlands and in Belgium. The team looking at the rear of Verstappen's car will bring you all the qualifying reaction, and you'll hear from the front runners in the Checkered Flag podcast, which will be available to download a little bit later this morning. But we will hear from the top three in a moment down on the grid. Perez fourth. Ocon did a good job out qualifying Alonso.
Yeah, very, very strong. I mean, we always... I see Ocon right now as a number 2 driver. Maybe his contract doesn't say that, but I do, because Fernando Alonso is one of the best of the last couple of generations. But we're just about to hear now from the top 3 qualifiers at the 2022 Japanese Grand Prix.
Pole position, 5th of the season, 18 in your career. Tell us a little about the lap. How was it?
It was pretty incredible to drive here again, and especially in qualifying. When you're on low fuel, these cars really come alive through the first sector. So, yeah, of course, very happy to be on pole, but also in general, just super happy to be back here.
Yeah, I see you looking at the back of the car. I think something sort of fell off. What
I
can you see?
I lost a part of the duct in my final lap, so probably that's why I couldn't really improve. But nevertheless, the first lap was good enough.
All right, and you're being investigated, it seems, at the moment about Lando. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was just, driving quite slow, and I wanted to accelerate, but my tires were quite cold. So then I had a big moment. And then, of course, Lando was trying to pass me at the same time, so he had to avoid me a little bit, but luckily nothing happened.
Good. Well, tomorrow, the race, you've done the right thing today, pole position, going for the championship tomorrow. How do you feel with the race car?
Yeah, it will be interesting, first of all, to see the weather. I mean, some say it's going to be dry, some say it's going to be raining at some point during the race, so we just need to...
So I'll be P8. P8, that is not good. P8.
Eighth.
Charles, bit frustrating. It seems if that middle sector was really good for you. Tell us a little bit about the first and maybe the third sector.
Yeah, well, it's a very tricky lap around here, because whenever you are fast in the first sector, then you lose out in the last sector, and I tried to find that balance in the last lap, but lost a little bit the tires in the last sector and lost a little bit of time. So yeah, it's so close though with everyone, so that's nice, and we'll try to have a good race from there.
Yeah, what about tomorrow? Because it is mighty close, like you've said, but of course it's so important to get off the line going down towards one. And the race car itself, how does it feel, do you think, going into Sunday?
Well, I mean, very limited amount of data going into the race, so that's yeah, always a challenge, but the feeling was good with the car, so yeah, let's wait and see the conditions. It seems that it's going to have a bit of rain somewhere in the race, so yeah, should be a fun race.
And a lot of Charles Leclerc fans here and Ferrari fans, going to take it to Max tomorrow?
Yeah, it's always nice to be here and see so many people passionate about this sport and being so creative, so hopefully we can give a good show tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Charles. Well done. And Carlos Sainz, well, a mighty tight top three. Tell us a little bit about the lap itself.
Yeah, it was a very clean lap, a very good lap all the way until the last corner that I picked up quite a bit of wheel spin, probably used a bit too much credit from my rear tires in that lap. And yeah, it's a shame to be half a tenth again from pole. You know, it's been so many qualies now with Max and Charles that we are all within half a tenth. And the last half a tenth tends to fall more to the other side. Hopefully, yeah, towards the end of the season, this half a tenth falls a bit more to my side and I can get a pole position.
Yeah, and of course, speaking to the other two guys, obviously tomorrow's weather is looking a little bit suspect. But the Ferrari itself, how is it going to work if it's wet or if it's dry? What's going to favour you?
Yeah, I think the weather tomorrow is going to play its part. The rain is going to arrive. We don't know if it's going to arrive at 2 o'clock, 3 or 4, which is after the race. So, yeah, I think there's plenty of things that could happen tomorrow. There's also a great opportunity starting in P3. You know, we managed to save also a set of softs we needed. So yeah, I think we are in a good position to fight Max tomorrow.
Great, have a good one tomorrow.
Thank you.
Cheers, thanks.
So Johnny Herbert asking the questions to our top three. It is Carlos in third, in second Charles Leclerc, and starting in pole position for his 5th time this season, it's Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. And this time tomorrow, he could be a 2 times world champion. You will have to join us to find out whether he can do it. A reminder, he would need to win the race and get fastest lap. And if he can only win the race, then Charles Leclerc would need to be second to stop him from being champion. There are loads of other permutations.